Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this podcast, and pay my respects to the elders both past and present. Hi everyone, I'm Tahnee Cook and welcome to my podcast, Chuffed. Some of you may know me as the girl who got married to a stranger on TV, which thankfully worked out, and now I'm here chatting with you all on my podcast. And you're probably wondering what this podcast is about. Chuffed is your unfiltered safe space for all things love, career and life. Join me each week as we unpack relationships and dating, a dash of pop culture, and have fun conversations with cool people. In this episode, I'm joined by my best friend Tonia, and we chat about both our experiences on MAFS. She gives her insight to what it was like behind the scenes with filming, and we just have a general chit chat. Let's do it. All right, welcome back to the Chuffed Podcast. Today I'm here with the one and only, my bestie, Tonia.
Hi.
Tonia is a very familiar face on everywhere for me, socials. And for those that know and for those that don't know, Tonia and I had a podcast for a couple years.
We did.
Loved it. The Like Us Girls.
Yeah,
Come on, Tonia starts, give us the intro.
Welcome back to the Like Us Girls. I'm
Tonia and I'm Tahnee.
Literally.
And
oh my God,
today we're talking about
literally. Normally rogue.
Something rogue.
Something rogue.
I know. I feel like we did so many hectic episodes. I feel like we've got to dig them out of the archives.
Literally. No, 100%. I feel like we need a Patreon for all our crazy,
bring 'em all up.
the behind a paywall for sure.
I feel like a lot of the content on the pod was centered around my horrible dating life.
Literally. Honestly, especially towards the end, I would say that it was like, honestly, this is the Tahnee Pod. I was just there for some moral support. You were like, this is this date I went on. Yeah. This is what I have to go through. And I was just there like,
It was not great, and hence why I applied for MAFS.
Yep.
So it kind of took us to
Literally.
there. But no, we had a lot of crazy stories, crazy experiences. And Tonia was along for the ride.
I was.
And speaking of along for the ride, Tonia was along for the whole journey of MAFS. She was a little supporting character, I guess you could say. So had her experience with filming, had her experience kind of being from even the application. I remember I wasn't sure about doing it. And I think we had discussed it on one of our podcast episodes. I can't remember which one it was, about like what reality TV shows we would do. And I feel like I'd always been like, no, I would never do MAFS. That is just not my vibe. I feel like I would just be horrible on the show and end up being like a villain, which is just so
that's
so funny now looking back in retrospect. And I feel like you were there from that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like
I remember, okay, this is what I remember. I remember we were like talking about it, haha. It was kind of like a reoccurring thing that I would like every time she'd have a bad experience, I'd be like, haha, do MAFS.
I know, right?
Like pushing it. Every bad date was just like leading towards it. And you're like, nup. And then one random day you were like, okay, I wasn't going to tell you, but I decided I'm going to apply for MAFS and I need your help with my application. I was like, as if you weren't going to tell me. What do you mean you weren't going to tell me? I was so excited. I was like, okay, here's this. Say
this is what we're going to say.
This is what you're going to say. You got to say your little sister's getting married and all this stuff and all your bad dating. You got to put it in there. I was so excited. And then like literally every week. It was like every week I feel like you got contacted.
There was an update,
Like, you need this, do this, now we need to have this
It was
thing.
like a full process. Like I was quite surprised at how much contact they kept with like me during the whole time. Like it's so crazy. So when I applied, so obviously it's quite a long process and I think it took a couple of days to actually do the whole application. So I'd obviously told Tonia, formulated what we were going to say, what angles we're going to go for. And then I applied on like a Friday night. I was like, yep, doing it, applied. And then I was like, oh, let's just like see what happens. Literally on the Monday, I get a call and it was like a voicemail. I think it was a voicemail because I don't really like to answer like unknown number calls, lol. And it was like, hey, it's so-and-so. I'm producer on MAFS. I'd love to have a chat with you. And I was screaming. I literally like contacted Tonia and I was like, oh my God. And I think we both just had a feeling then that it was going to happen.
Literally, 100%.
I was
I
like,
think
oh,
as well
shit,
because it was
like-
so quick. Like, and I had this feeling in my bones. I was like, this is a snowball and this is just going to go boom, boom. And literally like every week there was an update and I was like shocked. And then it was literally this time last year that you got the call.
I was like, yep, you're going
in.
on and found your match.
Yeah.
which is just crazy. Like, I just remember, because you have to do the full application, then you got to do a video, and just being like, is this video cringe?
I remember you being like, okay, imagine if this got leaked, would this
I
be
be
really embarrassed? And I was like, no, it's cute.
It's cute. Maybe I should post it on the Instagram account.
Hi, I'm Tahnee. Like, it was so cute.
It was cute, and it was very much, I think, and I guess it was a bit of a factor, but not really. But my little sister got engaged, I think, in the prior couple months before. And mind you, so my sister and her fiance Jasper were the biggest advocates for me going on
they
MAFS.
Are literally number one, literally more of a bigger fan than me.
Literally
for
like 4 years. Like, they had been saying it for like so long, being like, nah, you got to do it. And I would be like, no way, like, not happening. So then when they found out, they were screaming, they were so excited, but they obviously got engaged, and it was very much like, oh, my little sister's going to get married before me. And it was like a whole thing. So that was part of my application, I guess. And I just remember, I want to see if I can dig up like all the answers that we had, because we really went in depth, and like, I think I put a lot of effort into my responses. So if I didn't get a call back, I would have been cut.
Oh, that is literally, it's like any like job interview or anything. It's the effort that you put in that you're most salty about if you don't get the role or get on the show. No, 100%.
And it's different because I spoke, obviously Ollie's experience was very different, having been approached from it, but he literally, because you have to do the application as like a formality. He was just doing random one word answers. I'm like, I'm out here being like, I've had the most horrible experience.
Actually trauma dumping.
Traumatic. And this is why I need a husband. This is what I need. And I was like, how funny that I get someone that just was like,
I know.
I'm just here for the fun.
It's so that's so typical though, right? Like the opposites, like attract or like you think you want, someone exactly like you, but sometimes it's the easy breezy to the manic that you need.
I know. So when that was all going ahead, it was crazy. And then I really felt like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then I found out about this time last year, and I had like couple weeks, like 2 weeks, 3 max notice.
It was stress.
It was very stressful, and I was like, it was a lot. So it was, from having this kind of thought like, oh yeah, this will be funny, to being like, oh, this could be like pretty serious. How do I actually feel about going through this process? Because I was sitting there being like, why do they want me? Do they think I'm like a psycho bitch? And
no,
I'm
right?
be like,
you do have to kind of think like, what character are they gonna put me in? Like, what's the archetype?
Totally. And I remember when I went in for the in-person like audition, like it was kind of one of the later stages, and I went in to meet like the executive producers, and I remember them. So I was very hush-hush about like social media work, content work, podcasts that we had, because at the time our podcast was still on the internet. You won't see it now because a lot of it had to go going into this process, but that was kind of online, but I never really included that in my application. I was very like I'm just gonna keep it out. And I remember during that audition, like they brought it up, and they're like, oh, so your podcast with your friend, you talk about your dating stuff. And I was like, oh no, here we go. They're gonna cast me as this like crazy podcaster girl that just talks about how horrible her dating is, and then give me someone that's more horrible.
I'll give you some content. You know?
give some content. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So they definitely do their research, and they kind of stalk you. And I don't know like which episodes they listen to, and that they still continued to want to be on the show. But no, I always thought that was funny, and I was like, oh, interesting. They were very much like, oh yeah, your podcast, blah blah blah. So then obviously finding out on the show, and I feel like it just went like 1,000 miles per hour since then. So I guess from my experience, it was crazy, but from your experience, because you were in a lot of filming, like you were in a lot of this like little backstory stuff, or like the kind of friend thing, like you were very involved even on the wedding day towards like the final vows, like you were very much involved in the process, like you're kind of, because they were like, maid of honor, like she's going to had these high expectations. What was it like? How would you explain to people, as someone who was on MAFS but not as like a cast member, but what the process was like being on the show, and something you think people wouldn't really necessarily know about?
I feel like from my perspective, I wasn't really aware of like how much waiting is involved. I think that's like from any like reality TV or anything, it's just so much waiting around that it really like drives you nuts. And that's honestly the biggest takeaway of like why I personally would not want to do a reality TV show of like the hardest work part of it is literally being like, oh my God, I'm so bored. They take your phones away. I need to have like something to entertain me. So that was probably one of the hardest things. But the second to that, I think that what was really insightful to be behind the scenes, I guess, of a reality show is I love reality TV. Like I am obsessed. Same. Like me and my fiance watch it all the time. Like we're obsessed. And it did change my perspective a little bit being on the show because of, knowing like, not that it's anything's like scripted, but knowing like how involved producers are in pushing certain agendas, right? And that the cast aren't even really aware of, right? Like you don't really know if someone's being honest of what they're saying to you from a producer angle. So to me, I think that was one of the biggest things of like, you're there kind of, they're getting interviewing you, I guess, to be like, hey, so how do you feel about Tahnee? And then I'm saying something and they're kind of like, okay, cool. So maybe say it again, maybe say more like, and you're like, oh, okay. And it's fine. And they kind of like shift you towards, and it's not like fake from the contestant side, but it is kind of like the producers that kind of like push you. They definitely guide. And I think that's given me a different perspective now when I watch reality TV, if I'm watching Love Island or whatever, knowing like what they're saying and what info they've given certain contestants, not other contestants maybe, or whatever it might be. So I find that really, really interesting. And I think that's the biggest, like, from people thinking they can get tea off me. They're like, okay, what's the actual like tea? Like, give us some info. And is it fake? Is it real? And I'm like, it is. The emotions are real, but maybe the way things happen aren't as authentic. But I think it's as real as a television show could get in terms of the emotions and like the drama of it, how people feel, 100% real. But maybe the way they got there or the way it's shown isn't.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I don't think I'll be applying for reality TV anytime soon.
No, not for me.
No, but I liked, being in the experience with you.
I remember Ollie's sister Lucy saying that she felt quite pressured on the wedding day to be quite criticizing of me and very like, oh, go in there, ask her questions, like, try and like get goss or whatever. I don't know if did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, I think for me, they like I kind of, well, I think I need to have some context of like I had to write a maid of honour speech.
Yes.
And they were very like I had to rewrite my speech maybe twice, and that was where I felt the pressure more so of like they definitely wanted me to go in and have some tea in the speech, which Ollie wasn't a fan of.
Yeah, I know. Not a fan of my bad dating experiences.
Exactly. So to him, that was a bit of, an ishwa in my. I honestly looked to him when I was doing my speech, and I could just see him start to spiral a little bit.
Like, who am I marrying?
Yeah, because it didn't get shown in the end. But my speech basically.
Do you remember it? Do you have like?
Oh, should I get it up?
Yeah, let's get it up. Let's read it.
Okay, I definitely.
And I remember. Because because you do your speeches, you do all those things, and you have to kind of rewrite it and just reconstruct it quite a few times to get it in a right place, which they can use. Obviously, none of our speeches were used at all. They did use part of my speech because I got quite emotional talking about my mum, and they used that in the ad. So they had me crying on the ad, and everyone's like, why are you crying? And they never used it. I was like, thank God for that. But they used like certain snippets, and it was a very emotional time because I was looking over and it was like Ollie's mum was crying, his dad, his stepdad, like everyone was really emotional. All of my friends were crying, literally every single one.
I was literally
there was not a dry eye, which I think would have been nice if people saw that because it was quite a really beautiful moment. Like everyone was just super emotional because I think they knew how much it actually meant to me to put myself out there and then to be in that situation. It was a lot, and I think there was just a lot of emotions anyway. I was like, this is just too much.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, and I just remembered I was like, keep it together in your speech. I was like, fucking can't. And yeah, I just remember it being really cute and fun.
Yeah.
Do you have it up?
Yeah, I got it up.
All right, let's hear it.
Oh, it's like a zoomed in. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Tonia and I'm the bride's BFF. Nice to meet you all today. When I found out I'd be doing a speech, I ran straight to Google to help me write it. Unfortunately, there were no speech examples for your best friend marrying a stranger. As Tahnee's best friend, I have been through a series of unfortunate events that have been her love life, and it may not come as a shock as we stand here today as she marries a stranger that I have not liked a single one of the men she has dated. One boyfriend was cheating on her the whole relationship, and she found out while they were on a holiday together. Another guy showed up 4 hours late to her birthday party and got upset when she didn't act excited over his present. And one even said she loved her after 3 dates and then ghosted. So many awful experiences I could go on and on about, but I'm hoping that changes today. So here's my advice to the groom on what not to do. Number 1, question her outfit choices. You will be wrong. Number 2, ask her to shout the bill on her own birthday. Yes, that really happened. And number 3, her biggest ick, not liking Thai food. But in all seriousness, as long as you focus on communication, respect, and share some laughs, you guys will have an amazing experience together. Tahnee is passionate, kind, bubbly, and obviously absolutely stunning. I hope her future partner is considerate with great communication and can bring out Tahnee's soft side, which may take some work after all the duds she's dealt with. I know that she'll be an amazing partner on this crazy journey, so insert groom's name here. You're very lucky. So please raise your glass as we toast the bride and groom and wish them the best during their time on the experiment.
So cute.
Fuck you, Ollie, for not liking it.
He didn't like. I think in his defense, which we've had this conversation together many times, and it's hard because I feel like when men hear women have bad experiences, they're instantly like, oh, okay.
And I definitely know that his brain just shut off. Like, I think he heard the one thing of being like, I've never liked any of the guys she's dated. He went, beep, boop, bah, and like just like went, you know, into a spiral. So fair enough. I get it. But, you know.
And those are all very real, true examples. Yeah. So, and that's not even, that's like the tip of the iceberg.
Honestly.
So that summary of what I've had to deal with. Yeah. And I was saying this to Ollie on the podcast when we spoke, that not all my dating experiences have been terrible. Like I have had some nice people, far and few between, that have been nice experiences, but they're just
not worth talking about.
There's not many of them, and it's like it's not that exciting. So,
and I think we always say this, like it's the majority. Like
it's
honestly,
the vast majority.
Like,
that's
you know,
terrible.
if you go to a restaurant 10 times and you know maybe 2 times were great, you're not going to recommend the restaurant. So like,
and they'll fine.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's fine.
Edible.
Wasn't
amazing.
Make me feel sick.
No,
Don't get food poisoning after.
Literally, like bare minimum.
But it's bare minimum, right? So yeah, I just remember that being a hectic time. But I love that speech. I think it's just so cute. Actually, no, this is an interesting thing. So I felt our season was very much more earlier on publicly exposed, like all the brides were leaked, everything was very full on. And I remember our wedding, I think ours was the 3rd wedding that was filmed. Tonia was full packed coming into the wedding. They were like full harassing her. Tell them the story, because that still is like crazy to me what happened.
I got dropped off at the wrong exit. If you know, the wedding was actually at the Carriage Works. So there's like pretty big,
huge warehouse.
Yeah. So multiple entrances. Uber, idiot, dropped me off at the like literally the furthest entrance from possible. Where it was. And so I start walking down. I mean, my bridesmaid dress was too long for me. And I'm horrible. Yeah, literally, I'm like hobbling down. Orchid. Yeah, literally, my little flower. And then the guy goes, like, I thought a producer, because I'm dumb bitch. And he was like, oh, you're here for the MAFS wedding? And I was looking down, so I didn't look up at him because I'm like going to fall down the stairs. And I was like, oh, yes. And as I look up, he's a pap. He's got my phone and recording me, and he's got his camera. And he's like, haha, yeah, I know, love, I'm a pap. And he like starts taking pictures of me. I was like, this is too much. What's happening? And I would start walking down like, oh, fuck. And then I start calling the producer that I had. I was like, hey, there's a paparazzi taking photos of me. I don't know what to do. Help. And they come running. This girl's like sprinting towards me. I think so. And she had a umbrella. And then she puts an umbrella over me, and then she walks me. And then the guy's still following us. He's like, sorry, love. Like, ha, ha, ha. Like, I already knew you guys there. You're not covering anything. And he was just talking shit, honestly. So fuck you to that guy.
I don't think I've seen that pap since like.
Yeah, he was an older guy, like real.
Yeah, I've never seen him.
Yeah.
But he was very aggressive. Like, even on after the wedding night, like, we were stalked to our accommodation, which was just mental.
Come on,
and, like, full on in our face. Like, had to have umbrellas and stuff. And it was a shame, because I feel like it ruins the excitement, right, of who gets paired with who. And that's the main thing that people wait for. With like, that's the one main thing. It's because, like, okay, you see each of the cast members, the brides or grooms, and who are they going to be put with?
Yeah,
and that's like the one thing you want to hold on to. And I feel like that just gets when that's ruined, it's ruined.
And even just like what you said about like you guys getting leaked, like even to you did you see picture of Ollie before? No, Ollie saw a picture of you.
So Ollie saw a picture of me, but his video was leaked of him leaving his accommodation, but I didn't have my phone.
That's right.
Otherwise, I would have probably seen that.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a reason why they take your phone away. Yeah. But I probably would have seen it, and I would have been like, lol. Yeah. Obviously, that's my groom on the same day.
Yeah.
But
because he saw a lineup of a bunch of girls, and then so he did know what the potential of his partners could have been. So when he saw you, he recognized you from the lineup.
Yeah,
obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Thank God. No.
It's like relief. But I was very like, why didn't the grooms get leaked?
I
like,
know.
I wanted to see. I would have had a panic attack if I saw. I would have been like, I'm freaking unsubscribed to this.
No, literally panic.
But I would have panicked. Because Ollie just looks so dorky at the hens. The bugs is just literally. So. I just love the scene of him. And he's just standing there like, "Hi, I'm Ollie." So funny. But no, that was just such a crazy day when I look back on it. Like just all the emotions, all the kind of chaos of it, and then just going straight into the honeymoon, going straight into the experiment, and just having. Because I feel like we spoke a lot throughout, but I didn't. There'll be times like Tonia would be asleep, like after a dinner party, I would like want to debrief, and it'd be like 3 a.m. and Tonia would be asleep. Sometimes you'd be awake. You'd be like,
I'm
up. What's happening?
Literally.
But most of the time, obviously, it'd be so late that you'd be sleepy, and I'd be like, I just want to like.
I'd wake up to like
chaos.
Do you know what's so funny? Within that time, my fiance was like, okay, I need to invent a drama alarm clock because I've never seen you more awake than when you answer the phone to Tahnee after a dinner party. I'm 6 a.m. I'm opening up my message like, what happened at the dinner party? What's the tea? I was so like excited for it. I was like this. But no, it was really hard. And I also think it's really funny because like the context that Tonia and I met maybe like 6-7 years ago. Yeah. We met at like a little networking event, and then she moved to the UK and we were like, mutuals online, but we weren't talking.
Super close,
we didn't talk all the time. And then when you moved back to Oz, we met up for lunch one time on your lunch break at work. And then from that day, we were best friends. Like we were like, okay, no, I'm obsessed with you. Literally.
So cute.
Obsessed. And so we were literally like, Tahnee and I, like, it's probably like, what's the word? It's unhealthy, but it's like, I forget what the word is, but we're obsessed with each other. And I would literally multiple phone calls a day. We'd FaceTime multiple times. We'd be like, okay, yeah, bye. 2 hours later, hey, and then be on the phone for 3 hours. We'd be there cooking, like, whatever. So for me, it was like a separation anxiety. From when you went on the show, I was like, well, I can't talk to her. And I honestly went through like all the stages of grief. I was like, oh, she's not going to love me anymore.
Literally, because then I didn't want to be like on the phone 3 hours and this guy's like, this guy's a fucking
no, literally, fair enough. But like, even when you literally were filming and you couldn't have your phone, I'd be like, maybe it probably was best for us to have that time to be like, oh wait. But literally, like, Tom was like, I'm with my fiance, I was talking, and he'd be like, oh my God, like, you got so much energy. I'm like, yeah, because I don't have Tahnee to talk to. I have to talk to you.
Because we are very much like, obviously we have our partners, but it's a different energy and a different thing you talk about with your friend versus with your partners. It's just not, it's not the same.
We're going to talk about, the same drama 50 million
over and over again.
And guys are going to be like,
dissecting it a million times, and we're happy to do it again and again, even years later.
You literally. Literally, it's even remember that. Let's go on about it.
Literally. So I always felt, it was hard not having that contact because we'd always
and
speak.
Also like from the side of a friend who, like, you're gone off with a random man doing a random experiment. Like there was a side of me like not worried, but just being like, yeah, like you're going through a lot of emotions, like you're dealing with a lot. Like it's scary for you to then not have to have that contact. But and then kind of going off of that as well, when you applied, I guess I wasn't really like prepared. It was all jokes and giggles, and then when the experiment started, it kind of set in for me. It's like, holy shit, if this goes bad, this is gonna be bad. Like imagine if this goes bad, and then like I'm gonna have to be like on call. Like I'm gonna be like not be able to leave your side if anything like went wrong, or just the drama of it all. If that potentially, if you had a bad experience, backlash after the show or bad experience during the phone. Like there's so much that could have gone wrong. So yeah, I'm glad
because it's like 3 stages, right? It's the filming of it, it's the airing of it, then it's like after, like public opinion. So it's very like you're going through the motions of things like it's literally a year since we started filming, and it's still, it's still drama that's circulating. It's still kind of things that were done so long ago that's being unpacked, being talked about. And you go through it so many times. So it's very much like, oh, this is a really bad experience. We have to relive this probably for the rest of my life, but also like at least for the immediate 1 year. And that's just a lot. And I do feel for a lot of the other women and men that had negative experiences and their kind of journey on it was just not as smooth as mine and Ollie's. It sucks. Like it really sucks. And just having, especially like the court of public opinion, especially when they don't know everything that you go through. And I feel like every reality star will say you don't know what it's like until you're in it. Which is true, but also like you had a good enough experience seeing what it is like. I think it's hard when you don't have control over how you're perceived. And I think I was very, going into it, I feel like I was quite realistic about being on the show and what it was, what the potential backlash could be, or what, you know, what it could do for me after. Like, I was like, I didn't want to quit my job. I knew that, you know, you probably can't do full-time influencing, or you can't do full-time whatever you want to do after this. Because it's not as realistic as people think it is. Like people think you go on a TV show and then overnight you're famous, you're rich, and it's all this stuff, and that's just like so far from the truth. I feel like that happens with honestly no one, like probably like 0.000.
And those people still work for it, I think, as well. Like it doesn't like you just go on it and then you can just float through. Like those people have to be creating content, or they're having to be doing all these like appearances and really like working to stay relevant, honestly, like hustling for it.
And it's not easy. And I think people, not naming names, but I think some people had unrealistic expectations going into the show, that life was going to be very, very different coming out. And I was very much like, I want to keep my job because I love this job. I'm happy to stay in this job for, you know, as long as I need. And I kind of knew it's like, oh, you know, you might get some cool opportunities outside this, but
that's a bonus.
More likely, probably not.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, like I have been able to, you know, do some cool stuff after, and, you know, do some fun stuff. Like, look, I'm here doing a podcast, like so cliche. But, you know, being able to do that stuff is a huge opportunity, but it's just not, I don't think that should be why people go on a show like this. I feel like it's a very high risk and low reward, extremely low reward. And yeah, I think people get blinded by the kind of bells and whistles of it all and think, oh my God, it's gonna be amazing being on TV. It's gonna be fabulous, and it's just not. It's not always all that it seems. And this is coming from someone who had a really positive experience. Oh my God, I just had like PTSD of like touching my mic.
Oh, that's funny.
Literally, because every time I'd do this, you'd fucking knock your mic over.
So
literally, that's so wild. So sorry, you guys are not watching. I just tapped on my décolletage chest, and usually that's where your mic is placed, and you can not be touching that mic. Or if I'm trying to have some gossip session, I'll just be rubbing my mic.
That's literally me during the wedding. I literally was like doing this every time I was like talking shit about something, and then
just,
afterwards,
like,
I'd be like, oh my God, they probably could still hear. I'm like, I hope they don't like have an expose on the stuff that me and Ashley were just saying, like getting stressed out.
And I remember talking to one of the audio guys, and like they literally record you in the toilet, so they have to like, you have to tell them so like they turn it off, but like it's like
so
fully on. I'm like, oh
the
my
amount
God,
of times during that wedding day I went to the toilet, probably like
nervous poo,
nervous diarrhea,
literally. But yeah, I think that's just my kind of key takeout. I feel like if you are thinking of going on this show or any reality TV show, just be really mindful about that. If you want all of this kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. If you want all this exciting stuff from it, it's just not all that it seems. And I think you need to be realistic, because it's just not the case. And it's a lot of emotional trauma that you're put through, positively and negatively. But it's just a lot. And I feel like people go into this with a bit of a naive mindset. And I feel like I was naive in some senses. I think one thing that I am a bit more disappointed about, which I've spoke to you about, is I didn't feel like I made really like, I mean, apart from Ollie, obviously, but like I made really like long-lasting friendships. Like obviously I'm going to know a lot of these people for a long time, but I really thought I'd have more like close kind of girlfriends, or kind of have, you know, I don't know, like another bestie out of it. I just didn't really have that. Obviously, I guess Ollie is what I got out of it, so I'm quite grateful for. But it was really hard, and I think this is me and Ollie, me and Tonia have really connected on this a lot. But finding it really hard to make friends in our age bracket, and just feeling a type of way. I don't know. It's always been really hard for me, and I feel like I had that same experience on the show. I really struggled to make friendships.
Feel that actual connection of friendship. Yeah.
It's hard because you're coming to an environment that's kind of really constructed, and you don't really know who to trust. And like, if that's going to be used against you or whatever it is, it's really, really hard
Totally.
to know how to navigate it. And don't get me wrong, like I still speak to a bunch of the girls and I love them, but
I think there's like a difference with being like friendly and friends and like than being like a bestie. Like it's different to have that connection, because I feel like being like, we are extroverted, bubbly people. I feel like that it's easy to have, you know, surface level friendships of, we're having good chats, we're having some giggles.
Like it's fine.
But to find that connection of deeper friendship of like, like just to you're my bestie.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always something I was like, oh, okay, like that's a bit shitty, but you know, I think I can't complain because obviously I got a partner out of it, which is a lot more rare. So I feel like I need to kind of count my blessings there.
I feel like going back to what you were saying about, you know, having a realistic expectation, maybe you were a bit naive going in. I do think that a little bit of it is that you kind of have to be naive to do it, because I think if you could see the future of like your potential of everything you had to go through, like you said, a majority of these people didn't have great, like in reality TV, don't have the best experiences, or it's not worth it for them. And sometimes I think like you just have to like take the risk a lot of stuff with life. So I think it's important to like balance and have a real good think about what is the potential outcomes. Is it going to be worth, can you deal with it more so? Like, are you in the space, I think, mentally to like, and I think, you know, obviously with a lot of these shows, they go through those mental health checks and whatever. But like a lot of them probably still, they shouldn't have passed.
No,
like,
I would agree.
In a lot of reality TV, like they shouldn't have been let on. Like they weren't in a place to receive
that amount of like criticism and hate.
And I think even like, kind of what you were saying before as well, like maybe some people who like kind of lapped up a lot of the attention, and now that kind of like fizzles out. And I think that's also not healthy for someone's like psyche to be like, you know, like if anyone given some attention, then get that attention taken away, get built up, and then nothing really kind of happens like that. No, I think no one talks about that aspect of it as well.
Totally. Because I always felt, I don't know why, like I kind of always felt outside of it still feeling like a bit irrelevant. Like I'm like, okay, I was on TV for like a couple months. I really don't feel like I'm in this kind of like, I don't know, like I just never felt a certain way. Even like when like people come up to you in public and stuff, I've always really appreciated it. I actually get quite shocked. Like I'm like, oh, what? Like when I see people looking at me, I'm like, oh, what the fuck's their problem? Like why are they staring at me? And then I'm like, oh, okay. They probably saw me on a TV show. Even like I was at the office the other day and I was like in the lift and I was like on my phone. This girl was like, were you on a TV show? I was like, yeah. And she's like, what one was it? I'm like, MAFS. So I always still like go about my day thinking as if people just don't give a shit about me. And I feel like that's really done me really well in this dynamic, because I don't have this expectation that people know who I am or give a shit about who I am. I'm very like, I just feel like just like every other normie that's out there living their life. I don't ever feel like just because I was on a TV program that I'm you know, it's weird.
It doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make you, it didn't make me any richer. It didn't make me any kind of, you know, it's just, I just did this thing and now I'm back doing my normal thing.
And do you know what I think as well, like for us, like obviously we have been in the social media like landscape like prior to this, even like actually in our full-time jobs, and then like passion project wise. But I think for me, even like, obviously what you got out of the show is Ollie and then some Instagram followers, right? And I think what is funny is that it hasn't really changed anything. Not that we thought it did, because we obviously work, but like even just in the way like people treat you at events and stuff, it's still the same. Like I think we used to have these issues when we'd go to events, maybe with work or whatever, and you'd maybe feel a certain type of way that people are being like a bit, you know,
standoffish
or dismissive or like whatever.
It's even worse. So it's like,
it's like I feel like I'm like, oh, okay, so it doesn't really, Instagram followers does not amount to anything. Really doesn't give you like it literally does not fucking matter. Like it doesn't make a difference. At all.
It doesn't. I feel like if that is your potential motivation, like, and it's hard, like just because you have 100, 200, 300,000 followers, whatever it is, one doesn't mean that you can have a full-time job. I think people feel like followers adequates
equal,
I think people feel like followers equals money, and it's not always the case. I mean, obviously I'm very lucky. Like I work with some amazing brands and I love what I do. And I had been playing in that space before, like more so as a content creator, photographer, whatever. So then actually being like the face of it and doing stuff as well, I absolutely love that. But it's not always the case, people. And like you just, yeah, you can't go at thinking that just because you have this, it's going to equal this. Yeah. It's not. It's literally not. And I don't know. It's so hard because people maybe are naive thinking that is.
Totally.
And it's with any show really. Like, especially in Australia, I think MAFS is one of the most creates more drama. It creates the chatter. Like, everyone is watching it. It's, you know, the most viewed show. So it gives you that kind of that buzz. But, you know, the drop off is huge. And I think if you're a different person than you were on TV and that doesn't translate outside, people are going to see that.
Totally.
And I just feel like, it's not, I don't think the show is really a stepping stone for you to be able to do other things. I think for some people, yes, but I would say like what percentage that is. Like,
and I think as well, it's up to the individual to like how they're going to maneuver and like they'll like, I don't know, you know, because for instance, let's just say like, you can cut this, but like Abby Chatfield, right? Like,
sure.
How many people like how many seasons of The Bachelor have there been? How many girls are on
have there been?
She is literally like an anomaly to that situation.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people go into these reality shows thinking they're going to come
and
out
they're
like
wanting
that.
to be, I want to be an Abby Chatfield.
It's
I
like,
want to be this, and it's not going to happen
because she worked for
and it's her, right?
It's her.
That's her.
It's
so
like,
she's not trying to be. And I found this really interesting because I obviously watched this season of The Bachelor because there was a little bit of crossover with our show. And I felt like I was noticing some of these characters that were trying to be a character, whether it was trying to be an Abby or it was trying to be like a villain. I noticed these, and I think if you go into a show not being authentic to who you are, it's only going to end up being bad for you, and it's just not going to land the same way you think it's going to land as it has. Because I'm of the belief that nothing will ever happen the same way twice.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to these type of, even like on our season, I felt like a lot of girls, I don't want to say it. I felt like at times people were trying to be a Dom and Ella, Martha, or whatever, Jules and Cam. And that's definitely something in the back of your mind. I didn't ever want to put a label on myself, but I felt
replicate something.
Yeah, replicate something. But I always was like, well, any situation, I would want a Jules and Cam situation because they are
goals,
MAFS goals. And I feel like some people are like, no, I want to be this, I want to be this. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And not that that's a bad thing, but I feel if you then stick by that and you don't, you're not yourself, it's only going to be like, it's not going to be good for you.
To quote my favorite 1975 song, it's, why would you believe you could control how you're perceived? You can't.
Totally.
You cannot. Pop off, love you, Matty Healy.
Shut up. Don't be a
cut this out, I'm going to get cancelled.
But it's true. It's true. And I was very aware of, okay, how am I going to be perceived? But it didn't really impact on how I was. Like, I was very, I feel like people might take me being nice, bubbly, or just really like over the top sometimes. Like, I feel like I can get really into like I'm very excitable. I don't know, like I just have an energy around me, and people can probably take that for a fakeness, I can imagine. And I've definitely been told that before or have heard it behind my back. But yeah, like I'm very much, I don't know, it's hard because I am pretty like happy-go-lucky majority of the time. And sometimes it's hard to convey that on something like a TV show, because I felt like at times when, you know, me and Ollie looked like we didn't say anything. We looked like we just were very unproblematic, stayed out of things. But in reality, like, we did speak up. Granted, it wasn't as much as others, but, you know, when that's kind of all in an editing reel, they're going to just cut whatever needs to be cut to suit whatever, you know, storyline works at that time.
If it doesn't make sense for you
and
guys.
I guess it didn't make sense for us. But, like, there were many times that we had spoken up. And even, like, the one that really bothers me the most is where it makes it seem like I am enabling Bronte to be with Harris, and I'm not telling how I feel, and I'm kind of just like going along with things. And that is just so far from the truth. Like at retreat, when she kind of, you know, goes off crying, I went in that room with her and Lyndall, but my scene wasn't showed. I had an on-camera chat with her the next day being like, hey babe, like, what's the situation? That wasn't shown. But then in the edit, it made it look like I'm sitting there being like,
you don't care really what's happening.
I don't care. And it's like, well, I did voice that to her separately. I personally don't want to yell at someone at a dinner table or confront them in a group setting, because I wouldn't want to be confronted like that, and I wouldn't want to be spoken to like that in that setting, because it's a lot. Like,
totally.
You have, like, can just never imagine a scenario where you'd be screaming at people or telling people off in a group setting. Like, never in my life would I ever be in that situation. No. So to be in that situation week after week after week was like, is this real? Is this seriously how you would go about a normal exchange with like friends. Like if we're at a dinner table, am I going to start yelling at you across the table being like, well, you did this, or Tom, you did this, like you fucking, like never. I would be pulling you aside quietly, sharing how I feel, and then that's fine because it's hard like being in an environment where you're judging everyone in their relationships. Like you just quietly judge and you leave it. But you're encouraged to vocalize that. And I think it's in the way you do. And my style is never to make someone uncomfortable like that. Because fuck being like approached like that. And I felt bad for Bronte in situations. Like even though I was like, Bronte, you're a dumb bitch. And she knows that. And I love her. And I feel like she really went through a lot of the motions. But I think her way of being told, oh, babe, maybe that's not the right thing to do is not going to be a confrontational situation. It's going to be like, hey, like pulling her aside or, hearing her out.
It's also really hard. Like we had a situation recently with a friend who was telling us a wild story. Wild about being in love with someone that maybe has an illegal job and, maybe has a partner and wants to marry him. And we're like, sis, do you actually like approaching it? It's like, okay, is this an advice time? She's like, no, I'm gonna do it anyway. I was like, okay, you're a funny bitch. Like that, leave it at that, because a lot of the times doesn't matter what you say. If people are not in the headspace to receive your advice or criticism, they're gonna do it anyway. So it's really hard
and you have to come to that conclusion yourself. And I said this to Bronte at the reunion or the like one of the last dinner parties. I was like, babe, like at the end of the day, you have to come to the answer, to the conclusion yourself. No one can shout at you. No one can tell you that many times. You have to come to that yourself. And she was like, yeah, totally. And that's why I never really wanted to push things with her, even though it frustrated me at times. That's how I would do it with any of my friends. And I think that's, it's hard approaching a situation like this when you're on a TV show. Things are very exaggerated, how you would go about things in your day-to-day life. Because, I think I stand by how I was on the show and how I would do things outside being filmed versus being filmed. And I think there was very blurred lines when it came to that because it was just a lot.
Like you said about being encouraged by producers. You're encouraged, to pop off.
You're encouraged to pop off. You're encouraged to be like,
approach things in the way you would.
So-and-so did this. What did you think of this? And it's like sometimes we're like, yeah, well, that's shit. Or like, that's, whatever. But most of the time it's like, okay, like, is this really that deep at the end of the day? Like, I think sometimes Ollie and I would sit at the dinner table being like, whoa, okay, is this really what we're all arguing or we're all bickering about? It was just really full on and not what you would do on the outside world. And I think you can't really go into this experience thinking it is the outside world because it's just not. You never would be in these situations. You never would. Like, it's just not how it is. God, it's just like taking me back.
I know, literally.
I want to do a segment with you, Tonia. Okay. And this is going to be a fun one. I feel like some stuff we can unpack. So, chuffed or not chuffed? So, you know it. It's discussing something, a topic, and we're going to unpack. Are we chuffed? Are we not chuffed?
Love it.
All right. Chuffed or not chuffed? LA and Coachella.
Oh, okay. I need to give some context.
Let's give context.
So, 2022.
This was prior. Yeah, prior to just before
MAFS. Tahnee and I went to Coachella. This was Coachella with Harry Styles, Billie Eilish, and The Weeknd. Right?
Lit.
Kanye. It was supposed to be Kanye, wasn't it? Anyway, I digress. So Friday night, so we get there. We had a week in LA before. Yeah. And then we had Coachella. Week in LA, great, loved it.
Love LA.
So I'll say chuffed. Chuffed. Great. Thrifted, did some shopping, ate some great food.
Oh, except for us getting really fucked up in Hollywood.
Yeah,
and our friend getting spiked. Yeah. Not chuffed about that.
Yeah, not chuffed about that. But anyway, I digress again. As a whole, LA loved it. Okay. Yeah. Coachella, was so excited. It was my first Coachella. It was Tahnee's fifth
or sixth. I can't even remember at this point.
Anyway, so I was so keen. Friday, we're all cute. With
cutest outfits,
like, took the cutest pictures. We're holding each other's hands, bestie goals. Anyway, we literally, it just gets dark. We've been there for maybe like 2 hours, maybe.
Yeah, super, super like early on.
We end up cutting through a mosh pit, which was, what was the artist, Tahnee?
Baby fucking Keem.
Fuck you, Baby
And
Keem.
I do not know a single song and I will never listen to him.
Never.
Because I'm so angry. Like, and okay, if I was like, if it happened during, we'll go. Yeah. But if this happened during Harry Styles, I would cop it. I would fucking cop it.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
Baby Keem.
Yeah.
Name me one Baby Keem song, guys.
I couldn't. Okay.
Meanwhile, everyone's gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing?
No, literally. Okay, so we're cutting through and Tahnee, we get to like, okay, no, we're cutting through. Then we get smashed around. We start getting like smashed around. Like, what the fuck? Like, really claustrophobic all of a sudden. Really crowded. I'm like, this was not like this. Like, literally 2 seconds ago. So we squirm and we get out.
And I've got a little backpack on. I'm like trying to move it to the front of me because I always went in the front. I just had a bad fucking feeling, man. I had a bad feeling.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to twist my backpack around.
And we're all holding hands, by the way.
We're all holding hands.
There's like 5 of us.
Yeah, 5 of us. And come around, I open up my backpack. 2 of my iPhones had been snatched out and zipped back up.
Dogs.
And I just knew, and I knew the bitch that did it. I looked right at her.
When it was all like
and I was
happening.
like, it was just so full on. First of all, Eddie was a friend's boyfriend. He had his phone physically taken out of his pocket.
Yeah, like he grabbed their hand and they just snatched it or ran away.
Our other friend
and
Sam,
his wallet, I think.
And his wallet. Sam, her phone, again, taken out of her bag. And this is me being like, I want to embrace the vibes. I don't want to be on my phone. I'm going to put my phone away.
Literally. Because we were on it. We all had our phones in our hands maybe 30 minutes before and we all collectively were like, let's just get the vibes, you know? Oh,
and then that's it.
That's it. So then Tanee's like, everyone, quick, look better. So then Sam's like, fuck, my phone's gone too. Melody still had her phone, and so we were all like scrambling.
But Tonia and Melody were holding their phones.
We were.
So they had those little like keychain. Literally
this is
keychain
the
things.
same one.
So like a chain, and that's literally the same one.
This is the same one. Bitch can't take my phone.
And Melody as well was holding it. And yeah.
So then we're like scrambling. Like then this crowd starts to disperse because the show ends up like finishing
one by one. My phone.
Like 30 people are standing around. There's girls crying. There's guys like looking for people to fucking punch. It's like popping
Every
off.
single person was like.
Melody goes to go like to where the mosh was, and then she comes back. She's like, Tonia, isn't this your wallet, which I had bought the day before? So it was a recognizable wallet. I was like, what?
It was like a cherry or something.
Yeah, I opened my bag and I realized that my wallet was taken. I didn't even realize because it was completely zipped back up.
Yeah.
They took all of my cash, my cards. They left my ID. So thanks guys. Thank you. Really appreciate that. But like, I was like, holy shit, I didn't even feel them. Like I did not for a second, like unzipped, zip back up. And it was so heartbreaking. We ended up like having mass anxiety. I think Sam and I ended up running to the lockers. Yeah. And Sam was like hyperventilating, crying. Like we had lost all the content we had taken from LA. Like
all the content was gone. Like, and it was hard because you couldn't, it didn't sync up because there's no reception. So I had iCloud, wouldn't sync up. So it just shit me because I literally bought that iPhone like 2 weeks before the trip. And I was just burning about it. I was like, God damn. Like seriously.
So fucking annoying.
And like, you couldn't just take one. I know. Just left me with one.
I know.
Like seriously. It was the worst. And we're like, I was backstage with another guy, Gage. His phone was stolen. He had like connected up to his Apple Watch, and you could see they were trying to enter the passcode in. And then we're backstage. We literally saw Harry Styles' mum and sister.
I actually wasn't there,
I was
but
screaming. Meanwhile, I was like crying.
Yeah.
And then like they just let us go wherever. We were just like at the back trying to get the police. We're in the police trailer, being like, please.
Literally, Sam's
help.
vomiting into like one of those hyperventilation like bags. She's vomiting, and in the background we can just hear Harry Styles.
Literally singing in the background.
Literally,
I was like, this is the worst.
Like we're literally like everyone's
the one artist I literally went for.
Literally. And I was like looking around. It was, you know, like something bad happens and the vibes are just so bad that I'm like, I hate my life. Like I was like, this is just so shit. You're in a different country. Your phone's getting taken. You're there to have the best time ever, and it's turned into like the worst time. And like, I get it. A lot of people are going to be like, which is the feedback we've gotten. It's like, can you just still like enjoy the time? But like
communicating, not being able to book Ubers.
It was
like,
really scary. And to be women, like to be women
like, to be like touched and not know as well.
Yeah,
like
it was like very violating, and it's just like fucking shit. Like and as well, like Sam didn't have iCloud at all, so at least Tahnee still had everything from
up until like getting to the festival.
Sam
my
lost.
Cute pics are gone.
I know we had the cutest pics. I can still visualize it in my head. Anyway. But like Sam was just like everything she'd ever
Gone.
had for like the 5 years, everything that was on her phone was gone forever, and she didn't have any type of backup.
Yeah.
So it was like really shit for her. So she was going through the ringer. The whole next day of the festival was just.
We posted a video that went viral on my TikTok, and it was like us on the floor. Tonia took this video, us on the floor, like going through a bag of like phones that like the police had found, and I was like, "POV, your phone getting stolen at Coachella," and then it's like "Party in USA," Miley Cyrus in the background, and I copped it on that.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh well, you shouldn't have worn that. You wouldn't have got robbed."
Yeah,
as
because
if like
slut
what I wear,
shaming.
slut shaming, and then like
Cute outfits,
it's not
so shut
slut
the
shaming.
fuck
I was
up.
like, yeah, but you're adequating what I wear to being what I deserved of being robbed.
Exactly.
Pretty sure that's correlating
Also,
to me.
just because they didn't have any pockets, it was in my bag, and pocket people still got taken. So
it was literally in our bag. Eddie got robbed out of his pocket.
literally.
Oh, and then also, sorry, we missed a point. Eddie actually found the robbers.
Yeah.
The robbers. And then he couldn't like bash this girl because he's a guy, and like they wouldn't open her bag. She's like, no, I'm not opening it. And she literally had all these phones in there. So it was just a mess. And then we went on a whole.
Are we
like,
gonna? Are we
FBI
gonna tell the story? Like, I think you need to get into like
so
the story.
we extended our trip to LA because we obviously had the Find My iPhone, and Sam's phone was tracking to this address in LA. Course, we're pulling up to the address. So we found a couple, love them, the cutest couple ever. Found me on Instagram and were like, hey, our phone's showing up at the same address. Let's go. So then they pick us up from the police station. We're driving around with their dog, going to the address, knocking on all the doors.
They end up speaking to like the superintendent or whatever,
Like,
the building
because
building manager.
Okay, it was in Koreatown. They were Korean and predominantly a lot of Koreans in that, like, and this man couldn't really speak much English,
so she could speak Korean,
and it was just amazing.
It was amazing. Like,
it was amazing. And then we ended up finding like the door of the address. I took a sneaky photo of her, opened the door, and they were like so sus. And it was her. It was her. Call the police. Police wouldn't do shit. So thank you, LAPD.
Yeah, fuck you, LA.
And yeah, we just had to sit there while our phones literally were pointing into the apartment. And
fuming.
my phone was sitting in there and I couldn't get it. And it was so
yeah.
close, so close.
I feel like people think we're like, every time like we tell that to people are like, there's guns in America. Like we couldn't get shot.
Mate, one of the guys was going to pull up with a gun and be like, give us the phones back. Because bless him, they had all their like honeymoon and wedding photos on their phone.
And they
like,
didn't have iCloud,
they didn't,
which is
so
like dumb bitches on their part.
them.
But like,
and honestly, like I would say like they should ransom to get the phone. Like I would have paid money to get that phone
literally.
back. And honestly, that's a business in itself.
Literally.
Go steal a bunch of people's phones.
I know,
get them to pay for the money.
Yeah, because I
would do it.
I
would do it. Melody's out here calling, being like, "I'll give you 3K cash for the phone right now. Meet us." But we didn't get the phone back. Yeah, so it was quite
Devo. And I really felt like we were going to, because we were on such a mission. It was such a like close. A journey.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I am such a good friend because I stayed an extra week to find this bitch's phone.
And we just had a great time.
We did. It was a good time.
Really cool activities.
That's why I think
it made up for LA, because I think we got to do more chill stuff and have like a nice time when it was kind of like ruined by the Coachella 100%. Experience, and then we just got to like kind of make up for it in a sense.
Yeah, I think as well, like the fact that, you know, like we did all this and then we got to kind of like redeem it. Going back to the chuffed or not chuffed, Coachella, not chuffed. LA, chuffed.
I love it. All right. Thanks, Tonia. Thanks for joining me. It's been great. I feel like you guys are going to see a lot of Tonia on this. So get used to that. If you can follow Tonia at Tonia Lives on Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. And you can follow at Chuffed Pod as well to get all your chuffed, chuffed everything.
Get chuffed.
And you can follow me on Instagram too at It's Tahnee. And yeah, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.